So I've always complained to you guys that I have problems with day-old chick suppliers in my country. And one of you guys recently asked me that, hey, Dr. Daniel, I don't understand. You always complain about chicks, but I see that you have layers, very prolific chickens at laying. And then, how about you just get a few roosters, a few cocks, put them in your population, have the eggs fertilized, then you just get an incubator. That way you hatch out your own chicken eggs. I don't understand. A very simple and quick answer to your very complex question. You're always complaining about not having chickens, having to import chicks from Hungary. Last time you lost over 200 birds. I think this would really help you. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be explaining parent stock and chickens and why on earth I haven't been able to breed my own chickens up until now. It's actually not a very simple answer. It doesn't come easily like that. But come on, stick around and I'll explain that to you. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Dr. Daniel over here, a very passionate farmer. Very passionate about poultry farming, and I'm glad to have you here. And if this is your very first time coming across me, well, you're in the right place. This is Farm Up, and on this channel we talk about poultry farming mainly, but then we have all the other types of farming also inclusive at the very moment. So if you haven't subscribed, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell, that way you never miss out on an upload. So I'll start off with a disclaimer. Guys, this is not a genetics class. I'm not teaching about genetics, and I'm not an expert at breeding, but I've done some little reading, so please don't use this as reference information for your exams. But I've tried to do my research and what I've come from experience, and I would like to give you guys some light about breeding of chickens and how we get to this point. Why I can't just get any random cocks around and just start breeding my chickens on the farm. So first and most important, you need to know that chickens are bred for particular traits. You don't just get chickens and start breeding them. There are particular traits that we are looking out for. For example, if we talk about broilers, you're thinking about the feed conversion, because the highest price in maintenance of chickens is usually the purchase of the feeds. So you want to spend as little as possible on those feeds. So you're talking about the conversion, how much of that feed actually goes into building weight. The second one is, breast size. Chicken breasts are the most expensive, so talking about the breast size. The other one, an example, is ascites. It's very common in broilers to have ascites, for them to bleed out and die. I think it's called water belly syndrome. The chickens just develop heart failure, they get ascites and they die. Then if you're breeding layers, you want particular traits, for example, the egg number and size. How many eggs is the chicken laying per year? Because that's how we, rate layers. The size and thickness of the shells of the egg, because if the shells are really weak, they're going to get cracked. They won't be able to be moved around, and no one wants such chickens, no one wants such eggs. We're also talking about the egg color, yeah? For example, in my country, if you bring white eggs, they really won't be eaten because people are not used to them. Some people will buy them, but people will not be used to them. For example, in India, I know in India, it's very common for people to have white eggs. For us here in Uganda, we mainly consume the brown eggs. And I know it's very market specific which kind of eggs are produced and what they will buy. So ideally, if you're breeding for commercial purposes, efficiency of the birds is super important. We want value for money. If I have 100,000 birds and one breed of chickens lays 320 eggs a year, while another lays 330 eggs a year, that's a 10 egg difference. And 10 times 100,000, that's 1 million. 1 million eggs that I've lost out in a year. So such small differences, while they look really small, they are really significant. Things that you can't mess around. So even for me, who is on my farm with just 800 chickens, it's not something that I would want to mess around with. So ideally, for you to be able to breed chickens, you need very many chickens. Ideally, you need a very large pool of genetics. That's why this breeding of chickens, from the very first generations can only be done by really big companies, because you need to be able to have the finances, you need to be able to have the research in order to have a very large pool of pure breeds. Because I just talked about a few things. For example, for the layers, I just talked about a few. For example, the three things: the egg size, the shell size, the color. But there are more things that you breed for. You're going to be breeding for things like disease resistance. You're going to be breeding for things like the size of the chickens, the color of the feathers, because all those things appeal to people. So for you to be able to have a population where you're going to be able to pick out each of these traits, because guys, these pure lines of chickens, for example the Rhode Island Reds, there are very many pure breeds of chickens. Yeah, these pure breeds of chickens each have a different trait, and some of them have one trait better than the other. So you need to be able to have a large pool in order for you to pick out these traits, but also avoid inbreeding, because if you have a small pool of the population, then you're going to have problems with things like inbreeding inside your population. So usually what happens is that you're going to have a very large population of the pure breeds. Then from those you'll get out grandparents. You'll get out grandparents for, you know, for the males, and you get out grandparents for the female. Then after that, from the grandparents you'll come down to the parents. So you'll have parents who are a male and a female. That's what I'm going to be getting on my farm. And then from those parents, you'll have the commercial breeds. You know, you'll have your layers, you'll have your broilers, you'll have your dual-purpose birds that are really specific, but their genes have come from parents. So ideally, parents are not very good performers. No. For example, I'm going to be getting parent stock for layers. This parent stock will not produce, and it will not perform as well as the offspring. That will be the commercial birds, because both the mother and the father contribute their genes in order for us to be able to get this superb commercial bird, the one that will lay all these eggs. So ideally what we have is that we have the F0, F1 and F2, very many generations, but usually F0 stands for the parent stock. Yeah, so this is not standard because it can just be used in reference to the generation that you have, but most commonly F0 stands for parent stock, then F1 will be the commercial birds that you have. For example, the layers that I have on my farm, they are an F1 generation because they came from a parent stock. Then F2 will be an offspring of the F1. I gave you guys an example of my dad's chickens. My dad had an F1 generation. Those were commercial dual-purpose birds, croilers, and he had them, and then after that they gave birth to an F2 generation, which is what he's actually using on his farm. But guys, F2 generations of chickens will never perform as well as the F1 generation, because remember, the F1 generation is a combination of the best traits from the parents. The mother and the father are going to combine to give you the very best traits. Now what happens with the F2 generations in that you're having the F1s, yeah, these F1s have gotten certain traits from both their mother and father. They have combined them, yeah, and so in the F2 generation you haven't introduced any new genes, and what's going to happen is that you're going to have certain genetics that are going to combine both from the mother, and then you're going to have genetics that are going to combine both from the father. You know, the chickens had some traits from the mother and from the father, and when they come together they're going to kind of revert back to some genes from the parent stock. So some of them are going to perform like the mother, some of them are going to perform like the father. But remember, both these were not really prolific at any of them. It was the combination of them that became really good. And this is really why even in human beings, in culture, past cultures, incest is a taboo. It's something that's not accepted, because when you keep marrying within families, you're going to have certain bad traits come up. They're going to get manifested, and they're going to show up in your children, in your grandchildren. So that's why it's important for us, you know, to move out. That way you prevent having these bad traits that might not actually have been seen coming together and getting manifested. So now the question is, well, so since I can't get roosters from my layers, that would be really terrible. How about I just get a random cock outside there, and then I mate it with my chickens, because that will have introduced new genes. Maybe the chickens will perform better. Well, I don't know what traits this cock has. I'll give you guys an example. Here in Uganda, most of our cocks or most of our chickens lay white eggs. And the eggs that we sell on our market, the commercial eggs, usually are brown eggs. They're not white eggs. So because of that, if I mix this cock together with my, you know, layers or something like that, we're going to have a color of eggshells that I'm not sure about. The other one is the size of the eggs. So the idea is that I'm not sure of the results of the gene. And remember, I'm putting my money into this. I'm going to be spending on these chickens. I'm going to be buying them feed. I'm going to be buying them water, vaccination, and all these kinds of things. You want to be able to do that on something that you can rely on, very sure that you will get your money back. And then sometimes it's even impossible to breed the F1 generation. For example, for broilers, the common broilers that we have around on the market are birds that are bred to be able to be sold by the 5th week, the 6th week. Between 35 and 42 days, these birds are being sold for meat. They have put on, 2 kilograms or more than 2 kilograms. And the parent stock of these birds usually lays eggs at 22 weeks, between 22 and 25 weeks. So imagine, these birds are 6 weeks, they have reached their weight. How on earth are they going to get to 22 weeks? Yeah. By the time they reach that time, they'll be too heavy for their weight. They'll have developed things like cardiac failure, things like ascites, that water belly syndrome. All that is going to develop because they're genetically not able to handle. So some of you guys have been asking, hey, can I just get a rooster and use my broiler over here to lay eggs and then I have my own parent stock? Nope, you can't. So then, why hasn't this problem been present in our local chickens? Because lots of us keep local chickens at home. You keep the same rooster over and over again, and it will mate with its first mate, then it will mate with its daughter, then it will mate with its granddaughter. Guys, you've been having these problems. The only problem is you've not been taking notice. No, you've not been taking notice. You've not been taking a clear look when the chickens get bad genes. These things come out in subtle ways. Yeah, you'll have less and less weight of your chickens. Some of them become more frail. They easily become sick over time. They easily die. And those are things that you don't notice. You probably attach them to something else, but it's because of the genes of your chickens. So it's something that you need to think about and look at very critically. So this is why I always keep telling guys that if you have local chickens, the best thing to do is to replace them every year. Replace your cock every year. So guys, yeah, that was a quick genetics lessons on chickens. I hope I've delivered good results and helped you guys to understand just a little bit why I'm getting in parent stock, and I hope you guys have understood what parent stock is. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them. Otherwise guys, thanks for watching. Lots of love. See you next time with another video. Bye bye.